The light on the alien world of Lyrian was soft, almost kind. It did not burn like the harsh sun of Earth, nor did it fade quickly into darkness. It stayed, glowing gently across the wide crystal plains and curved white structures that rose from the ground like living things. The sky shimmered in slow colors, pale gold and blue flowing together as if the world itself was breathing. Evan Hale stood quietly near the edge of the observation terrace, his hands resting at his sides. He was human, and that alone made him different here. Taller than most of the native species, with straight posture and steady eyes, he looked like a visitor even after 5 years on Lyrian. He wore the standard coalition uniform, simple and practical, marked with symbols of shared cooperation between species. Still, everyone knew what he was: human. Most aliens passed him without pause, not out of dislike but uncertainty. Humans were strange to the coalition. They were emotional yet controlled, expressive yet hard to read. Their faces moved in ways other species could not easily interpret. Their voices carried tones that meant more than words. Humans were never dangerous, but they were unpredictable in a quiet way. Evan was used to it. He worked as a xenolinguist, helping translate meaning between species that spoke not just with sound, but with light, posture, or chemical shifts. It was careful work, thoughtful work. Evan liked it because it required patience more than authority. Humans had learned long ago that patience was one of their strongest tools. That day, the terrace was busy. Representatives from many worlds gathered to observe a new cultural exchange display. Floating symbols drifted through the air, created by Lyrian artists, each one telling a story of their history. The natives of Lyrian, tall and graceful with softly glowing skin, moved slowly among the guests. Their kind valued calm above all else. Sudden movements or strong expressions were considered rude, even alarming. Evan stood back, observing quietly, taking notes on how different species reacted. He did not notice her at first. Seilathi was standing several steps away, watching him. She was Lyrian-born, part of the scientific council. Her skin shimmered faintly in the gentle light, reflecting colors that changed with her thoughts. Her eyes were large and dark, built to read subtle shifts in her people's expressions. She had studied humans for months through recordings and reports, but this was the first time she had observed one so closely in person. She found him confusing. He did not move much. He did not speak unless spoken to. Yet there was something active about him, like a quiet readiness. When another species approached and spoke too quickly, Evan slowed his speech. When someone hesitated, he waited without pressure. He adjusted himself constantly, not for advantage but for comfort of others. Seilathi felt something unfamiliar stir in her thoughts: curiosity. It was not unusual for her species to study other beings, but this was different. She was not analyzing data. She was watching behavior, intent, feeling. Humans were said to experience emotion before logic, yet Evan behaved with careful logic first. And still, there was warmth in his presence. As Evan finished recording a note, he glanced up and noticed her looking at him. For a brief moment, both of them paused. In Lyrian culture, direct eye contact was allowed but brief. Prolonged attention suggested challenge or deep evaluation. Evan did not know this rule well enough to react perfectly, but he had learned something else over the years. When uncertain, humans often softened. Without thinking too hard about it, Evan let his expression relax. The corners of his mouth lifted slightly. His eyes warmed. It was a small thing, a simple human smile. Seilathi froze. Her species did not smile. They showed agreement with light patterns, comfort with posture, curiosity with stillness. But a smile, an upward curve of the mouth with no clear function, had no place in Lyrian behavior. It did not signal threat. It did not signal bonding. It was open. Something about it felt wrong, and yet it also felt safe. Before she could stop herself, Seilathi felt her facial muscles move in a way she had never consciously commanded. Her mouth shifted, copying the shape she had seen in countless human recordings. The motion was slow, uncertain. She smiled. The air around them seemed to still. Nearby Lyrian observers noticed the change in her skin glow. Coalition members paused mid-conversation. A few beings turned their heads, sensing something unusual had occurred. Seilathi did not see them. She was focused only on Evan. Evan's eyes widened slightly, not in alarm but surprise. Then his smile deepened, not larger but warmer. He nodded gently, a human gesture of acknowledgement, and then looked away to give her space. That was it. No words. No gesture beyond that. But Seilathi's heart, an organ that responded to emotion long before logic, began to beat faster. She did not understand why. For the rest of the gathering, Seilathi struggled to focus. Her thoughts kept returning to that moment. The smile had not been demanded. It had not been earned. It had been offered freely without expectation. That was not how most species worked. Later that cycle, in her private research chamber, Seilathi reviewed the footage she had secretly recorded. She replayed the moment frame by frame. The human's expression changed smoothly, naturally. No dominance, no request, just presence. She opened a new research log. Observation, human emotional expression used as a non-transactional social signal. Response elicited untrained mimicry. Effect, calming. Classification pending. She paused, then added another line. Personal note, experience felt pleasant. On the other side of the city, Evan sat alone in his small habitation unit. He stared out at the glowing horizon, replaying the moment in his own mind. He had not expected her to smile back. Most aliens didn't. It usually made them uncomfortable. But she had tried. He smiled to himself, a quiet human habit. Humans had crossed stars not because they were the strongest or the fastest, but because they kept reaching out. Sometimes with technology, sometimes with words, and sometimes with something as simple as a smile. Neither Evan nor Seilathi knew it yet, but that small moment beneath the gentle light of an alien world had shifted something subtle in the galaxy. And it was only the beginning. The days after the exchange passed quietly, but something had changed beneath the calm surface of Lyrian. Seilathi found herself distracted during council sessions. She listened, responded when required, and maintained proper posture, yet her thoughts often drifted back to the human, to Evan Hale, to the way his smile had not demanded anything from her. It had simply existed, open and patient. Her species valued control. Every expression had purpose. Emotion was measured, guided, contained. Yet that moment had slipped past all her training. It had happened before she could stop it. And more unsettling than the act itself was the feeling that followed. A gentle warmth, a sense of ease. She did not like unanswered questions, so she began to observe humans more closely. Not from a distance this time, but directly. Evan noticed her presence the next time they crossed paths in the cultural archives. The vast chamber was filled with floating records, each one holding history, language, and art from dozens of worlds. Evan was reviewing a translation request when he sensed movement beside him. Seilathi stood there, hands folded, her skin glowing a neutral tone. This time she did not look away. Your expression, she said carefully, her voice smooth and precise, during the previous gathering was that intentional. Evan considered his words. He had learned that honesty, when delivered gently, worked best with Lyrian. Yes, he said. But not planned. She tilted her head slightly. Explain. It's something humans do when we want to show we mean no harm, Evan said, or when we want to be friendly without forcing conversation. And you expected nothing in return, Seilathi said, more a statement than a question. That's right. She absorbed this in silence. Over the following cycles, their conversations became more frequent. At first, they spoke only of work, language patterns, cultural misunderstandings. But slowly, Seilathi began to ask questions that were not part of any official study. Why did humans laugh when nervous? Why did they tell stories even when facts would be enough? Why did they form emotional bonds so quickly, even knowing they could be hurt? Evan answered as best he could, using simple words, careful not to overwhelm her. He spoke of Earth, of humanity's long history of mistakes and learning, of tribes that survived by trusting strangers, of empathy that evolved not because it was efficient, but because it kept them alive together. Seilathi listened. She noticed something else too. Humans did not wait to be understood before they tried to understand others. They stepped forward emotionally, even when the response was uncertain. To her people, this seemed reckless. To Seilathi, it began to seem brave. The coalition noticed the change as well. Reports began to circulate quietly among the higher councils. Humans were becoming central to more cross-species interactions. Disputes eased when a human mediator was present. Misunderstandings resolved faster, not because humans imposed solutions, but because they made others feel heard. Some species found this comforting. Others found it dangerous. A private council was convened, limited to senior representatives. Seilathi was summoned as a specialist observer. When she entered the chamber, the atmosphere felt heavy, tense in a way she rarely experienced. The discussion was careful but firm. Some council members expressed concern that humans influenced emotional states beyond established norms, that their behavior bypassed traditional protocols, that prolonged exposure could destabilize long-standing cultural balances. They do not follow emotional boundaries, one representative stated. They do, another replied. They simply define them differently. Seilathi remained silent, listening. The proposal was not hostile, it was framed as protection. A suggestion that humans be limited to technical and logistical roles, removed from cultural mediation and emotional influence. When Seilathi was asked for her assessment, she hesitated. Her training urged her to present data, statistics, predictive models. But none of that captured what she had experienced. They are not a risk, she said slowly. They are a mirror. Several heads turned toward her. They reflect what is offered, she continued. If approached with suspicion, they respond carefully. If approached with openness, they respond in kind. Their emotional expressions are invitations, not commands. There was silence. Still, uncertainty remained. The council delayed its decision, but the possibility of restriction was real. Seilathi left the chamber troubled. That evening she attempted something unprecedented. Alone in her quarters, she stood before a reflective surface and tried to smile again. She remembered the shape, the feeling. She adjusted her muscles carefully. The result was wrong, empty, mechanical. She stopped. It had not worked because the smile was not about form. It had been about connection. Later, she found Evan on the terrace where they had first met. The gentle light bathed the city in calm colors. Evan sensed her mood immediately. "Something's wrong," he said softly. She told him about the council, about the concerns, about the possibility of humans being pushed back into the margins again. "You're not angry," she observed. "I've seen it before," Evan replied. "Humans are used to being misunderstood. That does not bother you." "It does," he said honestly, "but we don't stop being ourselves because of it." She studied him. "You would continue offering connection even if it was refused." "Yes." "Why?" Evan looked out over the glowing horizon. "Because someone once did it for us." Seilathi felt something shift again, deeper this time. In that moment, she understood that humanity's strength was not in technology or reach, but in willingness. They stepped forward emotionally first, trusting that understanding could follow. When she smiled this time, it came naturally. Evan smiled back. Above them, the lights of Lyrian shimmered, unaware that a quiet decision was forming, one that would soon force the galaxy to decide what kind of future it wanted, and whether it was ready to feel it. The decision day arrived quietly, without ceremony or announcement to the wider city. The sky over Lyrian looked the same as always, soft light flowing across smooth towers and open terraces. Yet beneath that calm surface, something important was about to change. The High Coalition chamber filled slowly. Representatives from dozens of worlds took their places, their forms and colors reflecting the vast difference between species. Some glowed faintly. Some communicated through posture, others through sound or shifting light. At the far edge of the chamber, the human delegation sat in simple seats, unadorned and patient. Evan Hale sat among them, hands folded, his face calm. He had been informed of the discussion but not invited to speak. That was not unusual. Humans were often present without being central. Evan had learned not to take it personally. Seilathi stood alone near the center platform, waiting. Her role today was unusual. Her species rarely spoke in emotional matters, and never in political ones unless data was absolute. Yet the council had asked for her presence specifically. They wanted her perspective. Or perhaps they wanted confirmation of their concerns. She felt the weight of that responsibility settle over her. The chamber lights dimmed slightly, signaling the beginning of the session. The central voice of the coalition spoke, calm and measured. The matter before us concerns human participation in cultural and emotional mediation across coalition space. A pause followed. Evidence suggests their presence alters interspecies interaction patterns. Some see this as beneficial, others see risk. Several representatives spoke in turn. Their concerns were careful, not hostile. Humans, they said, created emotional responses that bypassed traditional systems. They encouraged openness before trust was established. This could lead to misunderstanding, dependency, instability. Others countered gently. Conflicts had decreased. Cooperation had increased. Humans did not force change. They encouraged dialogue. Still, uncertainty remained. At last, the central voice turned to Seilathi. "You have studied humans closely," it said. "You experienced direct interaction beyond protocol. Share your conclusion." Seilathi stepped forward. For a moment, she considered presenting charts, recordings, behavioral comparisons, all the things she had prepared. But as she looked around the chamber, she realized something important. Data explained what humans did. It did not explain why it mattered. She lifted her head. "I will not present numbers," she said calmly. A ripple of surprise passed through the chamber. "I will present an experience." Silence followed. She continued. "My species believes emotional expression must follow certainty. Humans reverse this. They offer expression first without assurance of return." Some representatives shifted uncomfortably. "I believe this was inefficient," Seilathi said, "potentially dangerous." Then a human smiled at me without reason, without expectation. She paused, remembering the warmth of that moment. That smile did not demand trust. It did not ask for loyalty. It simply said, "You may approach or you may not. Either choice is respected." Her skin shimmered softly, reflecting her sincerity. I attempted to replicate this behavior without meaning. It failed, because human emotional signals are not techniques, they are invitations. She turned slightly, her gaze passing briefly over Evan, who remained still, attentive. "Humans do not manipulate emotional states," she said. "They create space where others may choose to enter. That is why their presence feels powerful. Not because it overrides us, but because it gives us permission." The chamber remained silent. "They are not a destabilizing force," Seilathi concluded. "They are stabilizing precisely because they do not insist on control." She stepped back. The council entered deliberation. Soft light patterns shifted as representatives communicated privately. Time passed slowly. Evan did not move. He did not hope outwardly. He simply waited. Humans had learned long ago that patience was often misunderstood as weakness. When the lights brightened again, the central voice spoke. "The coalition has reached a decision." Seilathi felt a tension she had never known before. "Humans will not be restricted." A quiet stir passed through the chamber. "Instead," the voice continued, "their role will be formally recognized." Evan's eyes lifted slightly. They will serve as emotional pathfinders within the coalition, a voluntary role, one based on presence, mediation, and mutual respect. The title was new. No species had held such a designation before. This decision is unanimous. For the first time in years, Evan felt something tighten in his chest. Not pride, not victory, something softer, belonging. The session ended without celebration. That was the coalition way. Yet as the chamber emptied, something had shifted. Representatives paused near the human delegation. Some nodded. Some lingered, curious rather than cautious. Later, under the gentle light of Lyrian's twin suns, Evan stood on the terrace once more. The city glowed quietly below. Footsteps approached behind him. "You spoke well," he said without turning. Seilathi came to stand beside him. "I spoke honestly," she replied. They watched the light together for a while. "Your people changed nothing about themselves," she said at last. "Yet everything changed." Evan smiled faintly. "That tends to happen." She turned to him. "Will you continue?" "Yes. Even now that you are recognized." "Yes," he said again, "because that was never the point." Seilathi felt warmth spread through her, steady and calm. She smiled not as an experiment, not as imitation, but as herself. Others nearby noticed. One by one, hesitant at first, then braver, expressions shifted. Not perfect smiles, not human ones, but attempts. Open gestures, small changes. Humanity had not conquered the stars. It had simply reminded them that connection did not need permission. And beneath the gentle light of an alien world, the galaxy took its first step toward feeling together.